I'd like to show you something with a pack of Uno cards. So I'm sure we've all played Uno at some point in our life, so we just have the number cards here, 0 through 9 of each color. So I don't want to influence you, so spread them face down, but I would like you to name any of those 4 colors in the game. Red, yellow, green, or blue. Which one would you like? Blue. Okay, that's going to be your target color. So remember that, and we'll get back to that in a bit. But for now, I'd like you to cut the deck about in half and give those a good riffle shuffle together. All right, and let's do that again. So give those another really good riffle shuffle. Beautiful. So keep in mind, you just mixed up all the colors and all the numbers, so we have no idea the order of any of them. But I did make a prediction. I'm going to place this right here so it's in full view. Now for the first time, I want you to pick up the pack and look through the cards you just mixed and take the first 3 blue cards that you see and place them on the table, because that was your target color, remember. So we go through here and we have a 6, an 8, and we have a 9. Now, I want you to keep in mind, take a look at the pack here that you shuffled. Had you mixed this up any other way, you could have had a 2, a 1, a 0, a 3, a 5 in place of any of those numbers right there. And also, had you said red, you would have ended up with 203. Yellow would have been 047. Green, in this case, would have been 592. So the outcome that we have here was entirely based on your decisions and your actions. So it seems impossible to know that we would end up with a 6, 8, 9 here. But I did make this prediction that's been in full view the whole time. Now, if we take a look and add up the sum of these numbers right here, we have 6 plus 8 is 14, plus 9 gives us 23. And if you take a look right here, I actually wrote 23. Now I know what you're thinking, there's multiple combinations of numbers that could maybe add up to 23, right? So maybe I just got lucky. That's why I was more specific inside the envelope, as if you take a look, I also wrote that you will choose the color blue. And not only that you will arrive at the number 6, 8, 9. They can examine everything here. It's a perfect prediction. You end completely clean. This is Uno. Hey there, I'm David Jonathan and welcome to Uno. This is a really strong prediction effect with Uno cards. And the reason I love this so much is it's so direct. There's no unnecessary procedure. It really looks like the real deal. So how does this all work? Well, you're about to find out. But first, let's take a look at the materials that you'll need to set this up. Then we'll explain the routine, I'll get into a few bonus ideas, and we'll wrap it up from there. So I'm really excited you guys are with me for this, so let's get on with it. This is Uno. These are all the materials that you will need to set up Uno. Goes without saying, but you'll need a pack of Uno cards. Now I will teach an alternate handling for a normal deck of cards, but I strongly recommend getting an Uno pack as that's really what this effect was designed for. Next, you will need 4 pieces of cardstock that are blank on one side. So I'm using my business cards here, but any 4 pieces of cardstock will work. So if you want to use double blank cards, those will work perfectly as well. Then you will need 4 envelopes that will house those 4 cards. Those are going to be your predictions later on, okay? And then you will need some markers. Now you can just write everything out in black ink, but I recommend having the ink of the color match the color that was chosen. So that's why I have yellow, blue, green, and red markers here as well, as aesthetically I just think that looks a lot nicer on the final prediction, but I'll leave that up to you. So once you gather these materials, come back and we'll take a look at how to set this all up. So let's set up the envelopes first. You're going to lay the 4 across the table and you're going to write the following numbers on each. Now, in my case, I like to use black envelopes and with the white background and the number here. That's just personal preference. I just think it looks nice. So if you want to match this, I just bought a black coin envelope. I placed a white circle sticker on top and I drew my number on top of that, okay? But this works just as well if you want to take standard manila envelopes and just write the numbers on the back like so. All right, so I'll leave that preference up to you. Now let's write out our predictions that go inside the envelopes. So take a look at the screen here. You can pause it if you like, and you're gonna draw this out exactly as you see here. These are gonna be your 4 predictions. The multiple outs are going to cover the color, which is a free choice, and then the numbers are going to be forced via a method that I'll get into. So take your time, make sure your predictions look really nice, and once you're done with that, place your red inside the 12 envelope. You're going to place your yellow inside the 14 envelope, and notice the way they're going in. You want to match this exactly as you see. So the green goes into 16, and finally the blue goes in the 23. So we're dealing with multiple outs as we have the 4 envelopes, and in performance you're going to have to know which envelope to pull out that reveals the correct prediction. Thankfully, this is super easy and almost no memory work because you're gonna set these up in R, Y, G, B order. Red, yellow, green, blue. And if you look at R, Y, G, B, it's easy to remember because we're basing this off of Roy G. Biv, right? We all learned that in school to learn the colors of the rainbow, and we're gonna use that same order for the 4 colors in play here. So if you take a look at Roy G. Biv, and just look at our relevant colors, the red, yellow, green, blue, you'll see that that is in the same order. So that is how we're going to prepare our envelopes in that order. But in case you ever forget, just sound out Roy G. Biv in your mind or spell it out and you'll get to the correct position. Okay? So with that said, we also have numbers on all our envelopes here. And thankfully, you don't have to know which color is inside, right? Because you don't want to set this up and say, oh, 23, yeah, okay, that's blue. You don't have to do that because once you stack these envelopes up from the smallest number ascending to the greatest number, so 12, 14, 16, 23, these also follow Roy G. Biv or RYGB order. So in 12 we have red, in 14 we have yellow, in 16 we have green, and in 23 we have blue. So R, Y, G, B. So again, you don't have to remember which color is in which envelope, you just set them up in ascending order and it's naturally going to be in R, Y, G, B. Okay? So from there, there's a few ways that you can set this up, and this is all going to come down to personal preference. So if you want, you can have the 4 envelopes stacked in RYGB order in your wallet, and you can start with your wallet on the table. You get to the reel, you just pull out the correct envelope and place your wallet away. You can place them into whatever system feels comfortable for you. My preferred way is that I used my front right pocket. So just for the sake of clarity in this routine, I'll explain a very simple setup that's going to use your 4 pockets. So you're going to align the envelopes in ascending order, and then we would place your 12 in your front right, the 14 in your back right, the 16 in your back left, and the 23 in your front left. Okay? So with this particular setup, there's just 2 things to remember. The first is that our mental starting position is always going to be the front right pocket, and that the order that we're going to then count in is clockwise. So again, we have R, Y, G, B. So let's say they said yellow, for example. Well, I'm thinking to myself, I start on my front right, and I have red, yellow. So I know that this is yellow. If it's blue, then I just start on my front right and I go R, Y, G, B. So then I know that the correct envelope to reveal is the front left. So that's just a basic idea to get you started. Again, you'll set this up to whatever's preferable for you. The key two takeaways to remember are RYGB order, and then to stack the envelopes from lowest to greatest, so 12, 14, 16, 23, which is going to match RYGB. So you open up your Uno pack and you'll notice that there are 108 cards inside. Now we're only going to be using 40 in this routine. So you're going to take out the following cards. You're going to take out 0 through 9 with no duplicates in each color. So 0 through 9 in red, yellow, blue, and green. So just as you see here, I have all the necessary cards that we're going to need. Now, you're going to take out these cards, you can place the rest aside, and the first step is to make sure they're all orientated the same way. So if you look at the back of Uno cards, they have a one-way design. If I were to take this card and turn 180 degrees, you would see that that is clearly upside down than the rest of the pack. So you're going to want to make sure that all these cards are orientated the same way to begin, okay? Then you're going to split them into your 4 piles for color. So you got your reds, yellows, greens, and blues. So remember, we have force numbers in each pile here. So you're going to take your red ones, refer to your predictions, and you'll notice that we're forcing 318. So you're going to place these 3 cards on top, and then the rest can be on the bottom in any shuffled order. Next, for yellow, we have 473 as our force number, followed by the cards mixed up in any order. Then we have 592, then the rest of the cards mixed up in any order. And lastly, for blue, we have 689, and then the rest in any order, okay? The last step is to take the red packet and take that bottom card, whatever it is. So if you flip it face down, it's gonna be the top card here, and you're just gonna spin that 180 degrees. So that's the only card in the packet that has a reverse orientation. Then you're going to pick up the yellow packet, do the same, take that card on the bottom, spin it around, take your green packet and do the same. The blue packet you leave alone, you do not touch the bottom card there. Finally, we're going to stack these up. So it's very simple, as you'll notice. This wasn't by accident that we have 3, 4, 5, 6, because that just helps you. That's the order these are stacked in. So we're going to pick up the 6, we're going to count down 5, 4, and 3. Okay, so your final order of the cards, you're going to have the blue stack, the green cards, the yellow cards, and then the red cards, with the red cards at the face. So if you're to flip this face down, your blue cards would be on top. Now remember, we reverse orientated 3 cards in the pack. So if I spread these out, you can spot those right away, because you can look right here, you can see the O instead of the U, but it's way easier to look for this Mattel copyright in the upper left corner. So if you take a look here, it says copyright Mattel in the bottom right. That's what I use to spot those reversed cards, because those are going to be our divider cards, right? We're going to use those as indicators. So you'll notice we have 3. We have 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. They're very easy to spot when you look for that ink among all the black in the upper left corner. So what does this tell us? Well, these are going to cue us to this color separation of the spread here. So I know that starting here, all of these cards up to and including my divider are my red cards. The next section is going to be all my yellow cards, including the divider. Then from this card all the way to this divider is my green cards. And then the top cards here are going to be my blue cards. So as you can see, we're using RYGB, or RYGBIV, again, and this time it's going to help us with the order of the colors in the face down spread. Now you'll see why that's important later, but again, the only thing you have to remember is RYGB order for the 4 colors. So that is the very easy stack of our Uno pack. Now let's take a look at the number force. So we understand that there are multiple outs in play for the 4 colors, but how does this explain forcing the number when the spectator completely shuffles the deck on their own and it's entirely hands-off? Well, this is due to the endless chain principle. So the endless chain principle was published by Charles Jordan in 1919 in 30 Card Mysteries under a section called Tracking the Dovetail Shuffle to Its Lair. Now, I highly recommend checking this out. You can find it online, even though it's from 1919. And it is a great source for this understanding this baffling principle, and there are some really cool applications in there. And Theodore Adamant came out with some effects using this a little later on, but through some recent research, I actually realized that while Charles Jourdan gets credited for this effect, it actually predates him by 6 years, as in 1913, C.O. Williams published this in Stanion's Magic magazine. So it's crazy to me that a principle over 100 years old that's so baffling kind of got tucked under the rug a little bit. It's not as well known. So I'll just show you basically how this works. I won't go into all the details of it, but I have a pack of cards here, and you'll see that I've reversed the ace, 2, 3, or 4 diamonds in order, okay? So basically, if you would take the cards, cut them in half, give them a riffle shuffle, cut them in half again, give them another riffle shuffle, you would expect the order of those cards to be chaotic. But take a look. If I spread these out here, you will see that the ace, 2, 3, and 4 remain in their numerical order despite 2 genuine riffle shuffles. This is the endless chain principle. So your multiple outs are set up, your Uno cards are stacked, and you're ready to perform the effect. So you casually introduce the pack and just spread it across just to show that we have blue, green, yellow, and red cards, and we just have the number cards here, 0 through 9 of each. You then pick up the pack and respread it as you casually say, so we only have about 40 cards here. I took out all the wild and action cards, so we just have the numbers. And when you respread it here, it's important that 2 things happen. One, you want to make sure that you spread this with Uno facing you so that you can read Uno. Because if it's upside down and you spread it, it's just harder to find your dividers with all the extra Mattel copyright ink here. So if it's facing you so you can read Uno and you spread, you're just looking for those 3 bits of ink, and it's just much easier for you to spot. So you want to make sure that you spread this with the top Uno facing you so you can read it, it's not upside down. And then second, once you spread it across, you just want to make sure that those 3 dividers are visible, right? So if one card is covering it, just, pat along here just to make sure that you can see all 3 of them. From here, you're going to ask them to name any of the colors in the game. So red, green, blue, or yellow. Now, whatever color they name, you're going to have to cut to the top of the pack as you grab up the cards. Now, if they say blue, you don't have to do anything because our blue cards are already on top here. But if they say red, yellow, or green, you're going to have to cut that appropriate portion or that stack of those cards to the top of the pack. But it's very easy thanks to our divider cards here. So let's say they said green. So how do I know which one is green? Well, again, we're going to go back to RYGB. So again, that's RYGB is the order of the cards here. So these are my red cards, these are my yellow cards, these are my green cards, and these are my blue cards. So if they said green, I know that I have to cut this divider to the top. RYGB, RYG is right there. So as I go to scoop these cards up, I'm just casually going to cut them as I square everything up. And what that does is it brings all of my green cards to the top of the pack. Okay? So let's try that again with a different color. So let's say they went for yellow. So RYGB, I know that yellow is going to be my second divider. 1, 2. So I have to cut this card to the top of the deck. So I just scoop everything up and just cut it as I gather up the cards, thus bringing all my yellow cards to the top. Okay? And there is another way you can handle this as well. So let's say they went for red this time. So I know that's going to be my first divider. So as I go to gather these up, my thumb is just going to contact that red card and down jog it slightly. Then when I gather everything up here, I'm going to put pressure with my thumb on that card, pushing down, and that allows a separation for me to get a break as I scoop this all up right above all my red cards. Okay, so the divider card, I have a break above that. And then I just casually ask them, no matter what color was named, so I say, so red, so that was your favorite color? Oh, perfect, okay. And in that action, I cut all my red cards to the top. So basically, all you're doing is just splitting the pack as you ask the question. And you just ask them, oh, red, is that your favorite color? Oh, perfect, great, let's continue. And just like that, your red cards are on top. But let's say in this example, they said green. So we would have cut all of our green cards to the top here, okay? So you place the cards back on the table, and now you're gonna have your spectator shuffle the cards. Now, it's important that your spectator knows how to do a riffle shuffle in order for this principle to work. So I wouldn't lead with this effect. I would do a card trick earlier, and I would say during that effect, give the cards a good mix, give them a good riffle shuffle, and I would watch and note how they shuffle the cards there. So if I note that they can do a good riffle shuffle, then I can hand to them with confidence here, and it will work. But if they can't do a riffle shuffle, you still can't perform this effect. You just do the shuffles yourself. And I can attest that it is just as effective. You don't lose any impact to your spectator if you have to do the shuffling sequence yourself. And even for magicians too, because it's clear that you're not doing false shuffles. You're doing legit, real shuffles. So you should have no control over the outcome of the shuffled pack. Right? It's not like they're thinking, oh, it's in a stack and he's doing false shuffles, nice try. You're showing clear as day that these are legit shuffles, okay? So again, let's get into the shuffling sequence now, as it's very important how you phrase this. So again, your spectator is thinking of a target color. Let's say they went with green as in our example, and then you place the pack in front of them, and now you don't mention anything about shuffling yet. Your first instruction is going to be, take the cards and cut them about as close to in half as you can. So your spectator is going to pick up the cards and cut them close to it in half. Now, it's important that they do cut the cards relatively close to the center for this to work. It doesn't have to be dead on, but it has to be within that range. So for example, if they cut off a few cards like this, that's not going to work for our principle. If they cut off too many cards like this, that's not going to work. So you just say, do me a favor, cut the packet in half in about as close to the center as you can. So they do this. Now you want to make sure that they don't try to make any adjustments, take a few extra cards and put them on top to try to, eye it out and level it. It doesn't have to be exact. So if, for example, they put too few cards on, you can just jump back in and say, oh, no, it's got to be a really good shuffle, so cut them about in half, try a little harder, and then they do it in half here, all right? Now that they have the cards separated here, you're going to say, give them a good riffle shuffle. So your spectator now shuffles the cards together here. It's completely hands-off, which makes this so baffling. So they square everything up. Now for the second shuffle, you have to cut the pack for them, okay? It just has to do with this principle because you need to cut more than halfway down. So I don't want to leave it up to the spectator because if they cut it in half or too close or a little bit less, it won't work. So I always let them cut it in half the first time, do the riffle shuffle and square up. Then I take the pack and I pick up and I cut a little more than half the deck. So I'm going to pick up about 2/3 here and place that down. As long as you take more than half the pack for the cut here, the effect will work. So I always go for about 2/3, okay? It's in my safe zone that I know I'm not going to cut it too close. So I'm going to cut about 2/3 here. And now I'm going to say, give them one more really good riffle shuffle. So now the spectator does the shuffle. All right? And now everything is set. So just to recap that sequence here, you cut the color of your spectator name to the top of the pack. You say that's going to be your target color. We'll get to that in a bit. Then you're going to say, cut the cards about as close in half as you can and shuffle them together. So they do that. And then I say, all right, why don't you do that again? And I cut off 2/3 of the pack and they shuffle them together and close it up. So now we are home free. Believe it or not, that sequence thanks to the endless chain principle, is going to reveal their card in that position. So now you're going to remind them that they just shuffled up all the colors and all the numbers into a completely random order that nobody could know. And then you're going to introduce your prediction. So remember, you've had all that time from that entire shuffling sequence to just go through the RYGB order to know which color to pull out. So in this case, it's green. So I'm just thinking always start in my front right pocket. That's my mental starting point. And then RYGB. So that's RYGB. So I know that it's my back left pocket. So you would reach in, and then you bring out this prediction and place it onto the table. So now you tell them to pick up the cards and hold them face up, which they do like this. And then I ask them to go through and take the first 3 green cards they see, because remember that was your target color, and place them into a row on the table. So they're going to spread through, and believe it or not, it's always going to be 5, 9, 2. So there we have the 5. We go through, there's our 9. And finally, there is R2. It is unbelievable how this principle works. It'll fool you the first time you do this, but there we are, 5, 9, 2. So now you want to really milk this. So you're going to take the cards back and you're going to spread them wide across the table here, okay? Now you want to point out the impossibility here, because you could say, now keep in mind, had you shuffled this any differently, you could have had a 7 or a 0 or 4, any of these other green colors in place of those cards here. And you could have said yellow. Had you said that, you would end up with 0, 6, 2. Or blue would have been 9, 2, 1. Red would have been 2, 6, 7. It was entirely in your control as you shuffled the cards and you chose the color. It seems impossible, but again, that prediction has been in full view the whole time. So you scoop up the cards, so you say, let's take a look at the sum of these numbers. So we have 5 plus 9 is 14, plus 2 is 16. And you slowly take your prediction, and you're going to turn it over to show you predicted 16. Now let that sink in. That's going to get a strong reaction because it really does seem impossible that you could predict this. But then you want to poke a hole at this, right? So you could say, now 16 is impressive, but maybe I got lucky because there's multiple combinations of numbers that could have arrived at 16. So if this 5 was a 4 and the 2 was a 3, then 4, 9, 3 still gets you 16, right? But that's why I was a little more specific inside the envelope. Then you take this up, open it up, and just slowly pull out and reveal you will choose the color green. You let that sink in because that's going to get another strong reaction here. And notice how I'm pulling this out. Remember when we set up our prediction, we leave this space in here so you're not getting too far ahead. You get this nice reveal here with this clean text of the you will choose the color green. Then you say, but I didn't stop there because I was certain that you would deal out 5, 9, 2. And then you can hand this out to them if you like. Again, show the rest of the envelope is empty. I like to place this down here, and everything is examinable. You end completely clean because they don't know that there's other outs in your pockets, and the prediction was revealed so early on in the routine that they're not paying attention to which pocket you pulled it out from or any of that, right? So everything on the table here is completely examinable, and it is such a baffling routine for a perfect prediction. So that is the main handling for Uno. I hope you love it as much as I do. And now let's take a look at a variation as well as some extra ideas that are really, really cool. So let's get into it. In this variation, we're going to eliminate the multiple outs and we're just going to force one number. So let's say, for example, we have a prediction that can now be in full view from the start. So we'll place that right there. And your setup is going to be similar but different. So in this case, I'm going to force the number 328. So if you look here, all my force numbers here, my 3 digits, are going to be 328 at the start of each packet here, okay? The rest of the setup is identical. It's just instead of the different numbers and for the different colors, they're all just going to be 328. So you'd begin the effect the same way. You'd introduce your prediction or whatever, and then you would spread out the cards like this, except when you spread this out, you just want to make sure that they don't notice 328, 328, 328 at the front of each of the color packets here. So I like to spread it something like this, and I can pat this along just to show the different colors, but I'm doing a little bit of a tighter spread so you're not seeing that pattern. So I do a little bit of a tighter spread, and then if you do it like this, you can leave this out here for longer as you talk. Okay? Then you're going to scoop this up, and just like before, you're going to respread it face down, and then you're going to ask them to name any color. So let's say they go for blue, just keep this simple. So you would cut whatever color you have to the top if necessary. Just as before, you would ask them to cut the pack in half, give it a good riffle shuffle, cut it in half again, give it another good riffle shuffle, and then ask them to place the first 3 blue cards that you see on the table. And now I would take the packet back and I would spread this out, but I would do this a little bit differently because I can show that everything is really well mixed and that they could end up with different numbers just as before. But what I'm doing here is I'm keeping a block on top because due to the setup of the deck, they're going to see a lot of 3s and 2s and 8s sort of clumped together here. All right, so while it may be noticeable if you respread now after those cards are out there, your spectator is not going to notice it because I didn't instruct them to look at the numbers. All I said was pick up the packets, find the first 3 blue cards you see, and place them to the table. So they're not registering the numbers at this point, they're just looking for the colors, okay? So again, if I wanted to spread this in my hands, I would just do a block push off and then spread the cards here just to show them cleanly mixed. So that takes care of that. I mean, there's just a little bit of a pattern in the pack here that you'll want to cover up with this method. And again, at any point, you can even just say, and again, remember, you shuffled up the cards, a really good riffle shuffle, so they really are in no particular order. And that would kill the rest of the setup here. So you can always do that, as a gesture and just give it a shuffle. But we have the 328, and then you can show the prediction in full view from the start is also 328. But I would take this a step further if I were to use this, because this is a utility to force a single number. So I really wouldn't do this. I would still stick to the original routine with the multiple outs and the extra revelations. But what I would use this for is as part of a larger routine. So for example, maybe this is part of a book test where you would say, all right, turn to page 328 in the book, the first word on that page or the largest word on that page, and that would be something you have predicted in advance, or you can just read their mind on that point here. This could be a calendar in the US. The calendar system is, month and date, so this could be March 28th and have that reveal as part of a date, wherever you want to take that. If you add a 4th digit, this could be a PIN code, right? So this could be a PIN code revelation. If you force another, just have this, 3287 and have 3287 stacked up all the way. It can be the last 4 digits of your phone number. If you want, you can also have 328 and have this be the combination to a lock that's locking a prediction or something. So take this for what it is, as a utility to force a number, but I would use this in one of those larger context routines instead of just a prediction on the table. But I just wanted to share that, as it is a really nice bonus addition that you can do with this method. Another idea I'd like to share is that this can be used with a normal pack of cards. So it's kind of self-explanatory when you think about it, but instead of red, blue, green, and yellow, you have clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. So you would just remove all the picture cards from the pack and leave you with ace through 10 of your number cards, and you would have the same setup as before, just adapting it to a pack of cards. So maybe some people would prefer that. If you do want to go that route, the justification for removing the picture cards would be that we're going to use this pack of cards as I'm going to have you create a number with it. But it doesn't make sense to keep the picture cards in there, as those are letters, so I remove them, as we're really just going to be focusing on the remaining numbers, okay? So that would be a way to get into the effect using just a regular pack of cards. But again, I strongly recommend using the Uno cards, as that's what this was really designed for. As I explained earlier, when your spectator names a color, you just have to cut that appropriate color to the top of the deck, unless of course they name blue, because it's already there. Also, if they name red, you do not have to cut the pack either. So I'll explain how this works. So just as before, we spread out the cards, they say red, you don't cut them. You just say, take the cards, cut them in half, which they do. They shuffle the cards together. And here's the one change. Instead of cutting more than half the cards, now all you have to do is cut a little less than half the cards. They shuffle these together, and then when they go to spread the cards, your 3, 1, 8 will always be at the face of the deck when you spread for the red cards, okay? So it's just as before. You don't do anything, you don't cut the cards, except when you go to cut the pack for their second riffle shuffle, just cut off less than half instead of more than half, and the red cards will be in the correct position. Another idea I wanted to share is using a multiple out envelope. So there are a number of 4-out envelopes on the market, notably Blake Voigt's number 4 envelope, and the one that I like to use is the Quattro wallet. So it'll change slightly if you decide to use one of these wallets. So let's say they said yellow. So I would pull out a card like this with 14 on the back, as you can see here, and then cover, and so you will show yellow, and it'll arrive at the number 473. All right, so that's just another bit obvious idea, but wanted to include it here because this is definitely a great option. Another tip is during the reset, you will have to stack the 3-digit force numbers again for each color. So it's a lot easier to just write out a quick crib for what those 3 numbers are. That way you can have that on you. I like to keep that in like my notes app or as a picture in the gallery of my phone. It just makes that setup a lot quicker because you don't want to go opening up each envelope to check the numbers again each time. It just a lot of wasted time and wear on your envelopes. So I will say that you will start to commit these numbers to memory. It's just sort of a creature of habit after performances. You'll get used to the force numbers. But until then, just write out a quick crib. It'll just help you with the reset. One other thing I'd like to mention is that Uno cards, unfortunately, are not as good quality the way they're produced as, say a standard pack of cards. But the good thing is you get 108 cards in your package, and every card has a duplicate. So if your blue 8 got a little dinged up or something, that's no big deal. You can just take your duplicate blue 8 and replace it into your pack, so you're good to go. And again, you can always buy a new pack of these for, like I said, $5 or $6, so it shouldn't be too much of a concern. Another very important tip that I learned as I created this effect was that the card stock on Uno cards has actually changed over the past couple years. So some of the slightly older cards have a glossier finish so that when you go to spread them out to look for your indicators here, they spread nice and smooth. The more recent ones I found are quite clumpy and don't spread as well. So that would be kind of a problem when you're looking for your indicators here. So the solution is very simple. If you have one of these decks, you're going to take some talc or baby powder, and just like you would with fanning powder, you can use that as well, just place that into a plastic bag, place the Uno cards in, shake them all around, and then wipe some of the powder off when you're done, and those cards will now glide pretty well across a spread. So this brings us to the end of Uno. I really hope you like this effect. I love it personally. I like that it's a change from cards. Everyone relates to the Uno cards. We've all played it at some point in our lives, and it's just so direct. I mean, if you think about it, this is how it would look if you were doing this for real. There's no unnecessary procedure, and they really are shuffling the cards. It's hands off, so it's completely baffling. So I hope you like this and you get some good usage out of it. And if you do, just the one favor I would ask is, if you can, take 2 seconds out of your day and please just post about it on any of the Facebook Magic groups, or leave a review on the Magic Cafe or whatever site you purchase this from. That just helps spread good magic around. I mean, obviously it benefits me, but it benefits everyone else as well, because there is so much magic being released these days that the only way that you're going to know what's good is through word of mouth. So by keeping that going, it helps good effects spread to the top. So again, that'd be very much appreciated by myself and the rest of our community. But again, my name is David Jonathan. I really thank you so much for supporting my work, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next project. Take care.